A loophole that Trump, Mnuchin, and Gary Cohn all said was going to close. So what is carried interest? Make the argument for me why carried interest should be in there. Because the White House just said we wanted it out. Congress wants it in.
Oh, I can't make that argument. I advocated strongly to remove the carried interest.
Then who wanted it in? Private equity firms who seem to be keeping that beautiful loophole, carried interest. That's not being taken away. After years of talking about it, Senator Joe Manchin's reconciliation deal might finally start to address the carried interest loophole. But what is carried interest? Carried interest is a share of the profits that private equity or hedge fund managers take as compensation. It's a performance fee. And under existing law, this money earned by these executives, a tiny group of the most highly compensated business people on earth, they get taxed at a capital gains rate of just 20%. Why does that matter? Because that is about half the typical tax rate of other high-income earners, which is why politicians on both sides of the aisle, as well as voters who actually know what this thing is, have been demanding it gets changed for years and years. And tonight, like every other night, I have invited any lawmaker or industry executive that supports this provision to come on this show and explain why. But like every other night over the last 5 years, absolutely no one said yes. But former Labor Secretary Robert Reich did, and he joins us now. Mr. Secretary, walk us through how egregious this loophole is, because it's not even like it benefits Wall Street, not Main Street. This is specifically for the richest business people in private equity, the people who make hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And until now, this provision has been privately preserved while no one pays attention.
That's right, Stephanie. This is a loophole for the super rich, the richest of the rich. And there is no redeeming social value. There's no argument. Nobody can provide an argument. And that's why Barack Obama promised to get rid of it and did not, because the industry has so much power. And that's why even Donald Trump promised to get rid of this loophole, but did not. And Joe Biden promised. It is there in the tax code because the private equity industry and everybody who is relying on this carried interest loophole wants it there. It is a huge benefit financially to them.
People campaign on it, and then once elected, they hope the general population forgets, which we do, because it's obscure. But it could bring our government over the next decade something like $14 billion. Yet at this point, Joe Manchin, who wants this to be added to this new package, is heading for a collision course against Kyrsten Sinema. Could this thing end up tanking the Manchin plan?
Well, I hope not. It would be a scandal if it did, and a pox on everybody involved who did not allow this to go through. I mean, Kyrsten Sinema does like and is supportive of this loophole. I don't know why. Could it be because she has been a big recipient of Wall Street money? Maybe. I don't want to impugn her integrity. But there's no question that she has got to give way on this. 50 votes are necessary. Democrats, every Democrat in the Senate is going to have to vote for this huge bill, of which a part of it is closing this loophole.
But how do Democrats and Republicans move on from this? How do they campaign in the next election if right out there in the open there was the opportunity to close it and Kyrsten Sinema wouldn't do it?
Well, I think what basically the Democrats have to do is put this bill on the Senate floor and have her vote against it. Just dare her. Say, are you really going to hold up this entire bill? Are you really going to show the country that you are there protecting the richest of the rich with a loophole that nobody can justify? Well, maybe that's what's necessary. Maybe that kind of heat would be enough to do it. Otherwise, I don't know where the Democrats go. Democrats could come up with maybe something else to fill this gap, but it is such an egregious, such a purposeless, and such an obvious payoff to Wall Street and to the richest of the rich that it's going to be very hard to justify. One final point. Both Democrats and Republicans have been the recipients of money from private equity and hedge funds and from the big money behind them. And so this is a kind of an equal opportunity bribery problem.
Well, my quick last question then, should Joe Manchin walk away from it, right? $14 billion is a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, this reconciliation bill, this package has a lot more in it, a lot of good. Should he lose this if he can't get Sinema to budge?
Well, he may have to ultimately. Joe Manchin, though, has been standing up against this loophole for several years. 2 years ago, he was one of 3 senators who put their name on a bill to get rid of this loophole. He said last week when he advanced this particular compromise, he said, carried interest has got to be in here. So he's put a lot of his credibility on the line.
Imagine your boss was getting taxed just 20%, while you were getting taxed 37%. That's what this is, and nobody can explain why that's a good idea. But if they'd like to, I'm here every night at 11. Robert, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.